Okay, so today we're going to take a look at photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a process that autotrophs use, and they take the sun's light energy and change it into a chemical energy. So basically, this is how autotrophs, or we also call them producers, they use the light and make food. The sun's light is made up of different colors, and you can see all the different colors here at the bottom. Okay, and whether it's living or non-living things, they have pigments, and pigments are just molecules that absorb the light. So taking a look at this, okay, here we have the banana. Why do we see this banana as yellow? Well, the banana has pigments in it that absorb all the sun's light, and what gets reflected back into our eyes is the yellow part of the sunlight. So same thing happens with this red apple. Okay, the sunlight shines onto the red apple, and there's pigments in the red apple that absorb the light, and then the red part of the light gets reflected back into our eyes. So why do plants appear green then? Same thing there. The green plants, they have pigments that absorb the light, and what gets back into our eyes, what's reflected back into our eyes is a green part of the sunlight. So light is one of the things that's important and needed for producers to do photosynthesis, and that photosynthesis takes place inside of organelles in the plant cells. So here's a plant cell. I know it's a plant cell because it's boxy looking, and all of these different structures, and they're all different colors and shapes and sizes. Those are different structures called organelles, and each one of these organelles, each one of these structures does something different for the plant. Now, photosynthesis takes place specifically in the organelle or structure called the chloroplast. Now, inside the chloroplast is the chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is just a pigment that helps to absorb the sun's light. So photosynthesis happens in this chloroplast, and the pigment is called chlorophyll is inside of the chloroplast. What else is needed? What else does a producer need to do photosynthesis other than light? Well, they also need water. Now, water is taken up by the roots. So there's water in the ground, and then the roots will take up the water, and then the water will go ahead and go to the chloroplast to help with photosynthesis. So plants need water, they need sunlight. The last thing that they need is carbon dioxide. Now, if you see here is a part of a leaf, and there's really small holes on the leaves called stomata, and the stomata will let a gas called carbon dioxide into the plant. Now, when it's open, it can also let water and oxygen out. But that's another thing that's needed by the producer to do photosynthesis. They need carbon dioxide, they need water, and they need sunlight. So who is involved in photosynthesis? Only autotrophs can do photosynthesis. And remember, they produce their own food inside their own bodies. Autotrophs are also known as producers. Who is not involved in photosynthesis? We would call them heterotrophs. They get energy by consuming or eating other organisms. They can't make their own food in their bodies. They cannot do photosynthesis. Another word for that, for heterotrophs, is consumers. So we know there are three things that are needed by the plant in order to do photosynthesis. What is on the left side of the arrows are the reactants. That means those are the things that the producer needs in order to do photosynthesis. It needs carbon dioxide, water, and light. Anything on the right side of the arrow are the products. These are the things that are made once it puts the light, water, and carbon dioxide together. So the producer makes its food. It's in the form of glucose, which is a type of sugar, and then it also makes oxygen. So this is the word formula. It needs carbon dioxide, water, and light. The producer needs those three things, and it'll yield or make glucose, which is a type of sugar. It's its food, and oxygen. Now, you need to also know the chemical formula for it. That means how to write all of these reactants and products, not in words, but in a chemical way. So carbon dioxide is written as CO2. That means it needs 1 carbon atom and 2 oxygen atoms together to make carbon dioxide. But the producer needs 6 of these carbon dioxide molecules. For water, water is represented by H2O. That means it needs 2 hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom to make H2O or water. But it needs 6 molecules of water in order to do photosynthesis. And lastly, it needs light. What does a producer make? It makes something called glucose, which is a type of sugar. So this means it has 6 carbon atoms, 12 hydrogen atoms, and 6 oxygen atoms. We put them all together, and that makes 1 glucose molecule. What else is needed? We need oxygen molecules, and in order to make that, you need 2 oxygen atoms put together, but we need 6 of them. We need 6 oxygen molecules. So this is the chemical formula. You need to make sure you remember both the word and the chemical way of writing this equation. So remember, what enters and leaves the chloroplast? This is the organelle or part of the cell that does photosynthesis. These arrows show what's going into the chloroplast. Remember, light energy goes in, water, and carbon dioxide. These are the reactants. These are what is needed by the producer. Okay, the arrows pointing out are the things that are leaving the chloroplast because these are the things that are made. What's made? The producer will make oxygen, and it'll make this important sugar molecule called glucose. There are 3 things that can affect how fast a producer can make its own food. Here we have a graph that has light intensity on the x-axis. So as we move to the right, that means more and more light is given to the plant. On the y-axis, it's the rate of photosynthesis. So as we move up the y-axis, the producer is making food faster. So if you take a look at this graph from A to B, we're giving the plant, or the plant is getting more light because it's moving from left to right, and as we're giving it more light, the rate of photosynthesis, it starts to increase, so it's making more food. And that makes sense because it's one of the things, light is one of the things that a producer needs to do photosynthesis. So give a plant more light, the rate of photosynthesis increases. That means it makes food faster. Then it gets to a point where no matter how much we go to the right, how much more light we give, the rate of photosynthesis kind of stays the same. It doesn't go higher. So even when there's more light, the plant reaches its maximum rate of photosynthesis. That means it can't make more food any faster than that. It's kind of like if you charge your cell phone, if it's the battery is dead. Okay, you charge it, and after a while it goes from 0% to maybe 100%. But after it reaches 100% and you keep it plugged in, it's not going to go past 100% in terms of your battery. It's not going to go to 200%, 300%, 400%. No matter how long you keep it charged or plugged in, it's going to stay at 100%. Same thing with plants in photosynthesis. No matter how much light you can give it lots and lots of light, but it gets to a point where it'll reach its maximum rate of photosynthesis. If you see, this graph is very similar, except on the bottom, instead of light intensity, we have carbon dioxide. Remember, carbon dioxide is one of the things that a plant or producer needs to do photosynthesis. So as we move to the right of the x-axis, that means the plant is receiving more carbon dioxide. As we're going up the y-axis, that means the rate of photosynthesis is increasing. It's making food faster. Now, it's very similar to what we had in the last graph. It just means that the more carbon dioxide we give the plant, the rate of photosynthesis increases. That's why it's increasing here. So more carbon dioxide, okay, the rate of photosynthesis increases. It makes food faster. But it gets to a certain point where no matter how much carbon dioxide we give it, okay, it's reached its maximum rate of photosynthesis, so the rate of photosynthesis stays the same or stays constant. It doesn't make more food than it is already. The last thing that can affect the rate of photosynthesis is temperature. So here, okay, instead on the x-axis we have temperature, so the further we go to the right, that means that temperature is getting hotter and hotter. Now here is showing an increase. That means the temperature is increasing a little bit, and at the same time the rate of photosynthesis is also increasing. So that's what A means. The warmer the temperature, it can make food faster. Until it reaches this point B here. Okay, at point B, this is the temperature that it's the best temperature and it's making the most food. Okay, another word for best would be optimal. So depending on the type of plant it is, some plants have optimal temperatures that are higher, some are lower depending on where they live. Okay, that temperature, whatever temperature it is, that's the best temperature and it's making the most food that it can. But if you see after that optimal temperature, you can see that the graph is going down. That means the hotter that the temperature is, the rate of photosynthesis decreases. It's not making as much food. So if the temperatures are too high, the rate of photosynthesis slows down, okay, or to a point where it doesn't make any food at all because it's too hot. So those are the things that can affect how fast a producer can make its food using photosynthesis.